Well, hello, everybody. My name is Becky Auer, and I am your host today. And I'm so excited to have Grant Barlow with us today because he is going to share the top 10 mistakes that new vinyl decking installers make. And there's a lot of them. We talked about them before the show. Grant, welcome to the show today. Thank you so much for jumping on with us.
I'm honored to be here, Becky.
Well, we have a good one, and it's going to be packed with information because there are so many different mistakes that people make when they are installing vinyl decking. And, you know, you get questions all the time from people like, help, how do I fix this? It's one of the best things that you can offer people. So let's just jump right into it and talk about those mistakes. So one of the mistakes that you get is that the installers don't learn all the correct installation details. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Since this material is it's a vinyl membrane, it's a sheet good. It's real easy on an installation to make the field of the job waterproof. The field being the big flat part of the deck. The hard part are wherever there's any kind of a penetration. If there's a post coming up through the deck, there's an
Right.
inside corner, an outside corner, all these little things that we call details. The two most likely places for your deck to leak are at the corners of the door and wherever the deck connects, the post connects to the deck. Those are the two most likely places to leak. So we have engineered details to address both of those problems, among others. And if you don't learn to do them correctly, you're going to have troubles. We have people that we make them watertight, and we also make them look beautiful. Primarily, we're waterproofers, but secondarily, we make we use techniques from the flooring industry to make it look good. The techniques for waterproofing are from the roofing industry. So if you don't learn all those things, you're not going to get both. You're not going to have it waterproof, and you're not going to have it look beautiful.
Which is what we want. So people who hire installers, right? That's all we want. We want it to look beautiful and to not leak. And so when those things aren't addressed, it's an issue. So thank you for that. You also said that one of the questions you get asked all the time is that the installers end up getting adhesive on finished materials like the doors, like the windows, like the screens, and the deck membrane itself. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, if you are a sloppy installer and you're not paying attention to the finished materials to keep them clean of the adhesive is real aggressive contact cement. It sticks. So if you get some on a finished material, it's real easy to remove if you pay attention to it and you get it off right away. We've got lots of tips and tricks for that. But if you let it sit there and it cures, at first it doesn't look so bad because it's kind of clear. It's a little bit milky, a little bit tan colored, a little bit. But what happens is because it's contact cement, it remains tacky and sticky. So dirt sticks to it, and eventually it turns the color of dirt. It gets to be black. So the day that you're done with the job, a few drips here and there, it's not that big a deal. But in 6 months or a year later, it's going to be black, and it's near impossible to get off. At that point, people are tempted to use a solvent to get it off, and that's a no-no because the solvent can attack whatever that finished material is.
I see. So it's almost kind of like when you put it on, it's almost like a super glue kind of adhesive.
Not really super glue, but contact cement.
I see.
That we apply to both surfaces and then let the solvent gas off and then stick it together.
I see. So, and that leads me into when you create that seam or that barrier, your company, OnDek Vinyl Works, has really penned kind of a name for that, the Ultra Seam. Is that right?
Yes. The Ultra Seam is used where we join two sheets together. Whenever the deck is big enough to require more than one sheet of material. The material comes on rolls that are 6 feet wide. So every 6 feet, we get a heat welded seam, which is where we take two pieces, we overlap one over the other, we heat them up with a hot air blower, and we get them to the melting point, both pieces, and then we fuse them together with the pressure from a silicone roller.
I see.
Our ultra seam is made of it's one edge of our material on that 6 foot roll is kept clean. There is no polyester non-woven backing for 1 inch of the edge. And that's the part we overlap on top of another piece and we weld it together. So we have no contamination from the polyester in that heat weld. The weld, the connection of the two sheets is what we're heat welding pure vinyl to pure vinyl. The bottom of this sheet welds to the top of the next sheet. And we can go on like that forever. Every 6 feet, we get that heat welded seam. And
I see.
that's what we call the ultra seam.
The
And
ultra.
we're the only people that have it.
Wow. Wow. So any other product really is inferior because that is the one that keeps everything together and waterproof, correct?
Exactly.
Got it. Got it. So, okay. So let's go on with our top 10 list. Another is that the installers don't make sure that the doors are removed before the installation.
Yes. Part of, well, every one of these decks that we cover to waterproof, every single one of them has an entry door. And it will be a door that goes from inside the house onto the deck. You would exit the dining room to go onto the deck, or you would exit the bedroom to go onto the deck, or whatever. But there's going to be some kind of a door. Usually it's a patio door, a slider, or a hinged atrium door, a glass door. Sometimes it's just a single man door, 3 feet wide or so. But there's always a door for people to have access to that deck.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said earlier, the most likely place for the deck to leak is at the corners of the door. And there's all kinds of shortcuts and mistakes people make on installations, especially with other products. They are not able to bend and fold and melt the other products, some roofing products, the way they need to get melted into the door. So what we do first is we remove the door from an existing installation. Say it's an existing deck and they want to upgrade to OnDek vinyl or IntelliDeck. They want to make that upgrade, and we first thing to do is we take that door out and we prep that door opening with our material. We flash it properly so that the door goes back in at the end of the job. The door goes back in on top of the flashing that we use, made out of our vinyl material, and that ensures that it's not going to leak. When you see it all done, you see that the door sill is all wrapped and welded together. It's one piece. It's not like a metal pan that some people put in there that gets nails through it, and then wherever you put a nail through it, it's going to leak. This is all heat welded together and glued onto the wood substrate underneath the door, behind the door. So it is really important to do that, and there's a price to pay for that. It takes time to take out the door. A new construction, it doesn't take any extra time, but some builders are in a hurry to get the building closed in for security and to keep it watertight. So they'll install that door. We ask that they install the door and maybe just put a few screws in it. Don't make a permanent installation. Put that door in so that you can lock up that building. But then when we start installing the waterproof decking, we want to remove that door, put it inside the building, move it out of the way, do the flashing properly, and then put the door in on top of it. And that way we can give a long-term guarantee on our installation.
Yeah, I love that. And I love guarantees. And look, as a homeowner or somebody that, that is hiring you or the installer to come and, work with them, they would like a guarantee too. So just talk to us for a second, if you will, about the guarantee that you offer.
Well, As OnDek Vinyl Works, our manufacturer guarantees the material itself. Uh, and the manufacturer is a Continental Surface Group in Winchester, Virginia. And they manufacture the OnDek vinyl. They also manufacture the IntelliDeck, both lines that we carry, that we distribute here from Ohio, all across the country. Uh, so as the distributor, we utilize the guarantee from the manufacturer. They've been making this stuff for 40 years. They've been guaranteeing it for 40 years, and they guarantee it to be waterproof. And that's for 15 years. And there's a 5-year appearance warranty on it, a fade warranty, if you will. And when if you're a homeowner or a builder or uh, a person buying this material installed, the person you buy the material from, you need to vet and make sure that that contractor, that person is good for the labor warranty, because the manufacturer can't guarantee the labor. And that's where we get into these details. The people that install, you want to make sure that they know what they're doing. And if you ever have any questions about the person that's going to do your installation, you are welcome to call me. My phone number will come up. You're welcome to call me, and I'll look them up, and chances are I trained them if they're trained, and I can tell you if they have been trained or not. I can look it up. I'll know about their company because I deal with these contractors. And if you are a contractor, you need to get trained and learn all these things and know how to do it correctly and give a great guarantee for your customers. And then you can, when you stand behind your product, then you're going to take a lot of care in the installation because you're guaranteeing it.
That's right. That's right. And people love guarantees. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And let us go on to, I think we're on mistake number 4 or 5 here. And that is that the installers don't use the best railing installations for water tightness. I assume that's a little bit like the doors, but this is for when there's railings.
Correct. The railing is the other most likely place for the deck to leak. And there's several basic kinds. There's sometimes it's a wood post that comes up through the deck, and uh, it sometimes it just supports a railing. Sometimes it supports a roof above. Or a balcony up above. They keep stacking them up and they support them with posts in between. But wherever that post is, it has to have a proper waterproofing detail. There's lots of easy shortcut ways to do it where it's not going to stay waterproof very long, if at all. There are then we teach people how to take the same material, take the vinyl material and wrap it up that post and terminate it properly so that water doesn't get in it and you can guarantee it not to leak for a long time. There's the wood post that we wrap up. Then there's the aluminum posts, which are really a best case scenario. You use an aluminum post with a flat plate on the bottom of the post. It sets on the deck on top, and you get 4 penetrations for big fasteners that hold that post down, where we have details, engineered details for how to waterproof that connection. And we pre-drill holes and we use sealant and the proper fasteners, and all that is available on some of the other videos where we go in great detail to teach how to do that. But we do have millions of those penetrations in use that don't leak. And other people have lots of penetrations that do leak. That's
Yeah.
an easy place to make a mistake. So if you're not trained on those, uh, you're going to make the mistake. And people oftentimes will use that flat plate and not use a sealant and sandwich it in between like a gasket, and they will just use a sealant, some kind of caulking around the perimeter of that post base, and that's a fundamental mistake. If water does get in there, you're trapping it in, and it's going to just take time for it to get in and rot the wood, the substrate, where that post begins to loosen up because it's not sealed properly, and
Right.
that's what goes wrong. It's actually a safety issue.
Yeah, for sure. Mostly if it's on a balcony or something like that. So we don't want that to happen. Talk to me a little bit. You and I talked before this about there are that sometimes there are bubbles in the vinyl when there's a cold weather situation, and the installers forget to even mention that to their customers.
I get calls from customers that have had an installation on that day or the day before, and usually it's in cold weather. And the way the installation process works, we use a very aggressive contact cement that is solvent based, and we brush it or roll it onto both surfaces. We we apply it to the top of the deck if it's concrete or if it's plywood, and we also apply it to the backside of the vinyl. That's why we have this non-woven fabric on the back. It makes mechanical adhesion for that adhesive. So after, it's sort of like a Formica job. After we apply the contact cement to both surfaces, we wait for the solvents to gas off, which means the solvents that make that rubber. There's two components in the adhesive. There's solvents and there's solids. The solids are actually from the latex tree. It's rubber, and then in the manufacturing of the adhesive, they add the solvents to that rubber to make it a liquid, so that we could spread it on our surfaces. Then we need to allow that solvent to gas off. It evaporates, and then we're left with a sticky, tacky rubber on both surfaces, and then we squeeze them together, and it's a permanent bond. If we're hasty, we will apply, we'll put those two pieces together soon after we apply the adhesive. And sometimes we have weather threatening or darkness threatening, so we'll push it a little bit. And before all the solvents gas off, we we entrap some of that solvent in between the two surfaces. When we entrap them, we they want to get out. So what happens is soon after we leave the job, or while we're still on the job, or the next day, the solvents that are trapped in between the vinyl and the substrate will try to get off. So they will expand a little bit, and they're going to make bubbles in the surface of the vinyl. This isn't a problem. It happens quite frequently, but the vinyl is waterproof. It is not vaporproof. The vapors of that solvent will gas off through the vinyl. They'll eventually they'll come out of the vinyl, and then when you step on the vinyl, it'll stick down to the deck. So it happen. It's more likely to happen in cold weather. If it's less than 50 degrees, the surfaces are less than 50 degrees, and it's going to be a cold night. We try to allow more time for that to gas off, but like I said, a lot of times we're in a hurry, and we don't wait for it all to gas off. And I assure you that 100% of the time, these bubbles will go away. So it's not the end of the world. I get those calls, and a lot of time I get those calls of people have been told by the installer that, yeah, don't worry, those bubbles will go away. And they find it hard to believe. They think they're being hoodwinked, but really they're not. They always, always, always go away. And it's just the nature of the beast. It always works out.
You're right, right, right. But you're right. People don't know. And so, they want answers quickly. So it's good to know that ahead of time, and good if the installers can tell the customers that may happen.
Yeah, it's important in a cold weather installation. When you get there in the morning, let whoever's going to be paying you know that there's a good chance we're going to have bubbles when we're done. You warn them about it first, and then uh, they don't get ambushed by it.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Very good. Okay. So moving on, let's see. Our next mistake is that the installers don't prep the deck properly, so the slope becomes inadequate, and the deck is flat enough to have no ponding water. So talk to us a little bit about that, because that sounds like it could be a nightmare.
Yeah, one of the beauties of this product is that it is waterproof, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. If there's a low spot somewhere in that deck, because it's waterproof, the water doesn't drain through or drip through. It will stay on that deck. It'll stay in that low spot, and it can cause troubles. You're gonna, if you walk out of that bedroom through that door onto the deck and there's a puddle out there, and you walk out in the morning and stretch your arms out, or bring a coffee with you, and you're wearing just your socks and you step in a little puddle because there was dew last night, you're not going to have a good feeling about the product. So, and we call that ponding water. And it is a technical term. Ponding water has a definition in our industry. It is any water that is left on the deck 48 hours after it rains. So if in the preparation of the deck, the construction of the deck, if it's concrete or wood, it doesn't matter. What we require is that the deck itself has a 2% slope away from the building or towards the drain, but 2% is the magic number that gives it enough pitch or slope to shed the water so that there's no ponding water. If when you build the deck, you have, say you turn, it's made out of 2x8 joists or 2x10 joists, and most of them have the crown up, and one of them is in between two with the crown up, and it has the crown going down. You're going to get a low spot at mid-span of that joist, and you're going to get a puddle, and that puddle is a problem. It's a problem for the appearance warranty, and it's also a problem for the use of the product, because there's you could, the puddle can cause trouble. The kind of trouble would be appearance. It'll make when the sun hits that puddle, it's going to get magnified a little bit, and you're going to get staining from whatever's in the dirt that's in that puddle.
Oh my gosh.
So,
well, that definitely is a mistake that they absolutely, the installers want to avoid. So it sounds like it could be a mess if not.
Correct. So, and it's easy to prevent. Well, not always easy, but it is preventable. And it just takes a good eye and a straight edge and good construction practices before this material goes down. And we also, if there is a minor problem, we can correct it with filler material.
Well, that's great. And when you represent OnDek Vinyl Works, you represent, IntelliDeck, and you've been doing this for over 30 years and have installed over 108 or 9,000 yards of this material. So it's coming from the right source. If you're out there listening and thinking about becoming or wanting to become a distributor for this product, Grant and his company are looking for distributors right now. And that's part of the reason that we're doing this whole series of the top 10 mistakes. So I'll put up his contact information here in a little bit, but let's continue on, Grant. The next one is also about installation, and that is that the installers use the wrong type of plywood underneath the vinyl.
The plywood that we recommend is 3/4 inch tongue and groove plywood. And we use real plywood, not OSB. OSB stands for oriented strand board, and OSB will be a plywood type product that is made out of flakes of wood that get glued together with a resin. Plywood will be multiple veneers that are glued together where the grains crisscross in each layer. In 3/4 of an inch, they go from 5 or 6 layers to all the way up to 11 or 12 layers. The more layers they have, the higher the quality, the greater the expense. But we like the tongue and groove plywood because when we put it together, there's no movement in the joints, and we're fussy about how it gets fastened. We have specifications for how to fasten that plywood, the frequency of the fasteners, and the most important thing is the gapping at the joints. People don't understand that it's important. It's we follow the recommendations of the American Plywood Association. That's a group of engineers that put put together rules for how to install things, and we don't bang it tight together uh, like I was taught when I was a kid as a carpenter. They taught us to take a big heavy sledgehammer and a 2x4, lay it on the edge and beat the pieces together so they're real tight. That's a mistake, because if they take on any moisture from the air, any moisture at all, we'll get what we call peaking at the joints, where the when the plywood takes on a little moisture, it will expand and the joints peak. And then you can see after the vinyl material gets put on, there are all the plywood joints because there's peaking there. So we leave a little bit of a gap, and it's all real specific how to do that. It's on all the joints, even if it's a tongue and groove joint, we leave gapping there, and that way we avoid the peaking of the plywood. So if we don't use real plywood, if we use an oriented strand board or OSB, it is likely to delaminate on the surface. Right now and forever so far, there has been no manufacturer of oriented strand board that will guarantee against delamination. They won't guarantee against delamination under a fully adhered roofing product or a fully adhered flooring product, and we are both. And I've been at trade shows where manufacturers of plywood or OSB will walk up to me and say, "Well, why don't you use our product? Why don't you recommend our OSB?" And I tell them, because you don't guarantee it. You don't guarantee it to not delaminate. And it's going to be a sales guy that doesn't really know all that, and he's gonna. I can't believe we don't guarantee against that. I say, "No, well, read your guarantee," because I've read them all. Uh, I'm the guy that reads them, and
Right.
so far nobody will give that guarantee. And we have, when we use that plywood I was talking about with a clear veneer on top where there's no knots and no plugs, we get a beautiful job, and nothing telegraphs through our finished material, the OnDek vinyl or the IntelliDek vinyl.
That's great. Super. Okay, well, let's switch it up and go into. So that was a lot of the installation stuff. Let's talk about, kind of the business stuff, because all the installers or people who, want to be installers of this product, they probably have a company or they're a subcontractor or something like that. So one of the things that we talked about that is a big mistake is that installer doesn't either use a contract or have a really good contract. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes, it is important to have a contract between the installer and the end user, or whoever is doing the installation. It could be an installation company, it could be a roofing company, uh, uh, a general contractor. There's a lot of different ways it gets done, but you want to spell out exactly what you're going to do in a contract, and then you want to do what you say you're going to do in that contract, and you want to have a signature both ways. You want to be specific about your guarantee. You want to be specific about the price. You want to be specific, if you're doing demolition there, you want to have in your contract a subsurface contingency. Sometimes we go to a job and it's got some material on it, and we pull it apart and we take it apart and see that there's rotted wood underneath that we couldn't know was there before, or who knows what. There could be nests from animals, bees, raccoons, whatever. And sometimes we have to pay to get that taken out. So you need to have that clause in your contract that lets the customer know that, or you're specific that if we find, if you're responsible for subsurface conditions, or otherwise you have to charge so much money to cover for all that stuff, everybody loses. Then you're overcharging on most of your jobs. But the contract is very important.
Yeah, contracts always important. And look, as a consumer, it's important to us as well. And to cover both ends, it's always great to go into a contract where everything's laid out. And I just love that that you have done this for so long, and I love that you teach other installers, builders, developers, property managers, how to kind of handle all of these situations. So before we go on, I would just like to give a shout out that if you are interested in having OnDek Vinyl Works as a line, or to become an installer, Grant, they can just reach out to you and get a design kit, correct?
Correct. They could go to the website and click on get your free design kit. And then they'd have to enter their contact info so we know where to send it. And then, or they could call me. My cell phone number is always available on all the printed info. They could
they could send you an email and just say, hey, I want that design kit. And that email is grant@ondekvinylworks.com with the spelling at the bottom. So just make sure to take a look at that. But let's continue on. I just wanted people to know that if they want a design kit, that they are available and you are shipping them out. All right, so let's talk about, again, the business-wise for the installers. Sometimes they forget to take a deposit, and then they can't really afford the materials if they don't have a deposit from the the person who's paying them.
It is important to take a deposit along with your signed contract, and it should be written in your contract what that deposit and your payment schedule. And the way I have always done installations is I'll take half of the money for a deposit, so I have money to work with to buy the materials, and then the other half upon satisfaction, completion of the project. And I'm real specific in my contract what the project, what's expected of me on that job. The deposit is so important, and it's because so you have working money. You're working with the customer's money to buy the material, and it's the money they spend is secured because the material is there.
Got it. I got it. So, and again, one of the mistakes that we talked about was if they get a deposit, they don't use that money to buy materials, and then they run short of money.
Yes, there are lots of guys out there that are excellent installers. They're excellent craftsmen. They're excellent carpenters. They're excellent roofers, but they're lousy businessmen. So we like to coach them on business and make sure that when they do take a deposit, say it's half of the money for the job. If it's a $4,000 job, they take $2,000 for a deposit. They shouldn't be making last week's payroll. They should take that $2,000 and have it in their account so that they can purchase the materials for the job. Then they have the materials, they can get the job done, and they could get the last half of the money when they're done. It's just so important. If they don't have the money to buy the materials, then they can't finish the job. They can't even start the job. And it's just that's a big mistake.
Yeah, always a big mistake, And part of that is, and our final mistake is that they don't charge enough for their services up front.
Right. The pricing, we help our contractors, our installers with pricing. We tell them how long it's going to take so they know they can insert their labor rate into it and charge a fair price. We don't want them to undercharge, then they don't have enough money to pay the labor to pay for the job, to install the job, and then they go out of business. We don't want our installers going out of business. We want them to earn a good living from installing these products and keep going. And because the product is so good that when they get it on one house, somebody else, most of our business goes to word, is spreads from, it increases from word of mouth. So people see it and they want to hear good things about the contractor that installed it. And they're not going to hear good things if you didn't charge enough to do a good job. You want to have the right attitude when you're down there on your knees and it's getting dark. Do you cut the corner, or do you uh, put in the extra effort to make it perfect, knowing that you're going to guarantee it and these people are going to be happy for a long time, referring you for a long time?
Well, I just love this, Grant, and I know anybody out there listening, that is an installer. These are all great mistakes to avoid. The next time that you and I talk, we are going to talk about solutions, how to avoid more mistakes. But in the meantime, if someone is interested, you actually have written and have a whole waterproof deck academy, do you not? And can you just talk just for a few minutes about that?
Yes, we teach people how to install. The traditional method has been go to a job and teach somebody how to install, bring somebody with me to do an installation, or I have in the warehouse, I am set up for training seminars. I have mock-ups where I teach people how to do all the different details. We actually have a deck, a demonstration deck that has all the details on it, so they get to go through all that. But sometimes they're not able to make it to Ohio to come and get my training. Sometimes they're not willing to pay me to travel. You know, it might be great distance, or there could be other problems where I can't travel to go to a job to teach them how to install. Uh, so we don't always teach live face to face. Because of that, I have developed a subscription based website that is called waterproofdeckacademy.com. And for a few dollars, you can learn all the details. I don't leave anything out. It's all the truth. It's unlike installation YouTube videos that you see that are free, where you get what you pay for. This is the real deal. I teach exactly the way that I install it, and I teach in a way that you're able to give a very long-term guarantee on your installation.
Well, I love that. And I know that everybody out there listening would love that. So go check out Waterproof Deck Academy. And if you are interested in becoming a distributor, or if you are interested in getting some more information, Grant, can you just share your email and your cell phone number with the audience?
Most important is my cell phone number, and it is 216-389-2212. Secondly is my email, which is grant@ondekvinylworks.com.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you today. And we will be back when we talk about solutions and how to avoid even more mistakes that get made on a daily basis. But for right now, thank you, Grant, and thank you for everybody listening. And we will see you in the spotlight.